Hey everybody, welcome to our family and community talks. We are on location today. We are in nature. And I'm with Stephanie Shook from the Marian University Nina Mason Pulliam Eco Lab. Did I get all that right?
Did.
Yes. Today we're talking about the environment. Oh, Marian University. So today we're talking about nature, about the environment, about how families and youth can get involved, and about this really gem in our community. I had no idea this was here. So we're out on Cold Springs Road on the kind of near River West side of Indianapolis. And it's open dawn to sunset. So really you can come anytime and enjoy this beautiful location. So we'll be talking about a lot today and hope you stick around to learn more about this location and the programs that they have to offer. Before we get started with the environment, I want to talk about our youth hero. And this month our youth hero is Elliot. He's 11 years old. Elliot has dyslexia, and Elliot did amazing things to bring awareness to dyslexia, to talk about dyslexia. He has testified at the Indiana House of Representatives and helped get a bill passed that brings awareness to dyslexia, and he even held a fundraiser that raised $18,000 for children with dyslexia. I was not doing that when I was 11 years old.
No.
So shout out to Elliot for the amazing work that you do. Your friends and family and teachers must be so proud of you. McCoy is proud of you. And remember that if you have a young person in your life, 18 years or younger, that you want to nominate for something that they've done, you can check it out on the McCoy Facebook page or McCoy's website. There's a form to fill out. It's really easy. And we love highlighting just the amazing things that young people are doing in our communities. So, nature. Eco Lab.
My favorite subject.
Stephanie is here with me. Stephanie, can you talk a little bit about what you do here and what the Eco Lab is?
Sure, yeah. So, as you mentioned, so we are on a university campus. So we're at Marian University. So we're about 10, 15 minutes north of downtown in Indianapolis. And so the Eco Lab is 75 acres of restored forest and wetland and prairie and riparian. We've got Crooked Creek that goes through, and then it goes into, filters into White River. So we have 75 acres, which is not a lot compared to some, but a lot compared to others. So we are right in the middle of Indianapolis, and that makes it pretty important, I think, to have a 75-acre space in the middle of Indianapolis.
Absolutely.
We are privately owned, so it is Marian University, but we are open to the public from dawn to dusk, so you can come here and take a visit. The best thing to do if you do want to come visit is park at Allison Mansion. If you go to the Marian University website, you'll see that. And park there, and then you can walk down the stairs behind the mansion. We have over 3 miles of trails. So our northernmost trail actually is parallel with 38th and 65, so it goes pretty far up. And we have a lot of really interesting native Indiana habitats, like I mentioned. So right now we're standing right next to the pond, so we have a lot of wetland areas, different types of wetlands too in the south. And then as we go north, we've got lowland forest. We've got our little prairie that we manage across the pond, and then we've also got riparian areas. So it's a really great space to visit if you don't have a lot of time, but you do want to kind of get out in nature. You forget that you're in the middle of Indianapolis until you hear like a helicopter fly over, or maybe some construction on campus. But
or the bells.
Or the bells, yeah. But it is a really nice place to kind of get away. So we are open to the public, but of course, a lot of our Marian community uses it as well. So our students use it both for recreation, but then also for research. So we have a lot of biology students that are environmental science concentrations, and they do a lot of research down here. Both Marian and other universities, other high schools too. And then of course we do a lot of K-12 programming, so we have a lot of younger students come here for field trips. We have STEM summer camp, things like that. So we do a lot of different programming for the community, both for students, also for families. And we've got a lot of things going on, whether that's actual scientific research, or if you just want to come take a walk and listen to the birds, which now is a great time to do that because it's migration season. So we've had over 160 species of birds seen in the Eco Lab. And so migration time is a time you're going to see you know, the most of those species, so you see more birds during migration time than you would other times. So it's a really nice place. And at this time of year, the leaves aren't out yet, so you can see the birds a little bit better.
Yeah, we saw some flying around over there, and they made a bit of a ruckus earlier.
Yep.
We've been here since 11 a.m. and there's so much that we could talk about. Can you talk a little bit about these structures that are behind us? You said they kind of have a cultural significance and historical significance.
Yeah, so the Ecolab has a really, really interesting natural history. I had mentioned some of that, but it's also got a really, really cool cultural history. So these were built over 100 years ago. So when I mentioned Allison Mansion, so they built the mansion over 100 years ago. It was built by James Allison, who was one of the co-founders of the Indy 500. And so they built the mansion up on the hill, and they bought all of this property here. What they bought is about the south portion of the Ecolab, what we're looking at. And so when they bought it, it was pastured. There were cows on it. And they brought Jens Jensen down from Chicago, who was a landscape architect, to redesign the space. Now, he was a really cool guy because he was a restoration ecologist, which is what I do, before it was even a thing. So he was landscaping. He was landscaping the area. He was a landscape architect, but he was using native plants in that landscaping. Yeah. So he would look at the landscape. He would look at the natural history. So what was here? What should be here? And he saw that, you know, it was very wet. So there were lots of springs. So we've got the cisterns here that hold water. So they're spring fed. This whole pond is spring fed. And then this was the pump house that would pump the water up to the mansion. So he used what we had here already, and then he installed native species to this area. So he was doing restoration ecology before it was a thing. So he was a really interesting guy. So we have a lot of these structures in the Ecolab as you walk around. We'll pass by another one here in a little bit. But so a lot of cultural significance as well, because this kind of got forgotten about, and it was called the wetlands by Marion, you know, since Marion has been Marion, but didn't really have trails and things like that. And so in 2001, Dr. Dave Benson, who is one of our biology faculty, he would bring his students down here all the time, and he saw these structures. Well, they ended up finding Jensen's plans. So really cool. So we have all of Jensen's plans, his designs, what he originally designed, and the species that he planted.
Yeah.
So he was able to get lots of funding, specifically from the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust, but then also from Amos Butler Audubon and a lot of other donors. So we were able to then start to restore the area. So removing invasive species, native plant installation, putting in the trails, and the trails in the south are original to Jensen's design. And a lot of our signs, as you walk around, talk about Jensen and his ideals. He was really passionate about having natural areas, green space in urban areas. He felt it was really, really important. If you're going to have these sprawling urban spaces, you've got to have parks, and more than just grass and a couple of trees. You've got to be able to have a place where wildlife can thrive too, and people can visit for free. That was very important for him.
Yeah, and this is obviously the dream come true,
yeah,
right? This is what he wanted, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what we're doing. So we're going to be talking about native species a little bit later, but I want JC to kind of show you the pond, show you the area. We're going to walk to a new section as she moves. And while we're walking and talking a little bit, and I'll kind of keep an eye on your feet there, JC, just in case something happens. Stephanie, can you talk a little bit more about some of the programs that you have here that maybe families can participate in?
Sure, yeah. So we do a lot of fun stuff. So we just had our beaver bonanza a couple of days ago. We have a colony of beaver that live on the pond, and they've got a couple of lodges here. And then you can always see the activity. So they're always chopping things down and flooding things, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, because they help to create and maintain this wetland habitat for all the other species that live here. So they're a keystone species, which means that if you were to take them out of this ecosystem, it would significantly change it. So they're a very important species in this type of habitat. But we also do lots of night hikes. So here soon, as it gets warmer, we're going to do some bat hikes. So we do a lot of night hikes, bat hikes, owl prowls, things like that. When it gets really warm and we have lots of bugs, we'll put the lights out and do a moth night. So we'll try to attract some moths and other things to our light, and that's a lot of fun. We also do wildflower hikes. We do a monarch tagging program later in the summer, early fall. So yeah, lots of them, and they're all on our website. We've got a website. If you go to marion.edu, Marion with an A.edu/Ecolab. All of our programs are there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram too, so we put all of our events there as well.
Yeah, it seems like a really easy way that families can come out, learn more about nature, be in nature, learn to appreciate nature. Something that I know we wanted to talk about is why it's so important for young people to be connected to nature. So we are in a city, right? Indianapolis is the biggest city in Indiana. It's probably, kind of hard or difficult, and a lot of kids maybe just don't get the opportunity that often to be out in nature. What are the benefits for young people to be out in the environment in green spaces like this one?
So that's a great question. So there are so many benefits. So people like me who have spent time outside in nature have said this forever. There are so many benefits to being outside, but there's actual scientific research now that backs that up. And we're doing more and more, and we're finding that out. So kids now are spending half as much time outside as they did 30 years ago. Obesity levels are doubling and tripling depending on the age, and so I think that we're seeing kids and people in general spend less time outside. They're losing that connection with their natural environment, and so what it really does for kids, and it's beneficial for lots of ages, but specifically for kids, especially when you're talking about the younger kids, playing outside. And when I say play, a lot of times we say, oh, they're just playing. Play is super important. Play is practicing to be an adult. You're practicing your social skills, you're practicing your creativity, your independence, your critical thinking, all of those things. And when you're playing outside, whether if you're with a group, you're building a fort. So you're learning fine motor skills, your independence, right? So thinking through something. But then also, it's a way to kind of recharge. So we've seen that the more time you spend outside, or if you include spending time outside in nature, and this is especially with children, but with all ages, is it's going to lower your anxiety levels. They've seen that it really helps with to lessen ADHD symptoms and things like that. So instead of keeping kids inside more and giving them more screen time, we need to be sending them outside and taking those screens away a little bit. And I feel that too. I get it attached to my phone. I actually don't have my phone on me right now, but it's with my intern right over there. So I don't get very far away from it because I need it for work and all those things. But I also feel that stress, I check it too often, and I have to put it down, take a deep breath, and go take a walk outside.
Absolutely.
And I feel so much better.
Yeah, we've been here since 11 o'clock. We came out a little early because this is our first time being on location. We wanted to check things out a little bit. But as we were walking out here, I said, I can't believe I'm working right now. I'm working and I'm walking and I'm outside, and I already can feel just from the hour and a half to 2 hours that I'll be out here, my day is enhanced. I feel refreshed. I feel less stress, and I've had kind of a busy week, so that's a good thing.
So you needed this too.
Exactly. And I know the American Psychological Association just came out with a study showing that teenagers who spend time in green spaces have less stress. And we know that mental health issues, depression, anxiety, and that chronic stress is something that a lot of our teens are facing more and more. And so this is something that's available to our young people in Indianapolis to have access to, and to maybe have an impact on that.
And that's an important thing too. Another reason why kids might not be getting outside, especially in urban areas, is there might not be a safe place for them to play outside. And that's a really important problem or issue that we have. And so it's not just easy enough for me to say, oh, go play outside. Well, they might not have access to that, or it might not be free. And so that's why spaces like this are so super important, because they are free, fairly accessible, We need more free, accessible places for kids to play safely, for families to go and experience nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. So recently, and we're going to walk a little bit more, but you said earlier this week you had a beaver bonanza.
We did.
And so, JC, if you turn over the pond, and as we walk, in that little kind of jut out where the tree trunk is, we can see one of the beaver habitats. I think I told my friends on Facebook when I posted, I said, I hope I see a beaver today. They're nocturnal though, so they're more active at dusk, you said. But who knows, one might pop out.
You never know.
That would be so cool. And as we're walking over here, we talked about we talked about native species earlier. So one thing that we're going to highlight is the native species called a bloodroot. And when we arrived here today, I said, oh my gosh, these little blue flowers are making me so happy. They're so springy. And Stephanie said, oh, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. The blue flowers are an invasive species. So can you talk about what an invasive species is?
Sure,
and then we can talk about the bloodroot.
Yeah, so the blue flowers is a Siberian squill, and there's not a whole lot of research that I've seen on it yet. And I've kind of paid attention. So I've been here about 5 years, and I've been working with invasive species before that, but I've kind of paid attention to it. And so with invasive species, one of the characteristics is that they move in and take over. So they move in, they take over, they push out other species, and it really lowers the diversity. And when you're talking about wetland ecosystems, forests, a lot of these habitats are highly diverse ecosystems. And so if you have one plant that's dominating the area, then you're going to have less plants that you can support wildlife. So you need more plants, more diversity in your plants to support more wildlife. And so I've really seen it move in and kind of start to take over this hillside and over there. And we have had a really nice stand of bloodroot, which is an early native spring ephemeral in Indiana. And I'm kind of noticing less of it here and more of the squill. So that's kind of where my restoration ecologist is turned on. I'm like, okay, maybe we need to do something else, something about it, manage it in some way. The bloodroot is really cool. It's this little white flower that you see here. It's got a really cool leaf that you can't see yet, so it's a really early flower. And it's called bloodroot because the roots and the stem oozes like a red substance. It's actually really cool. But it's got this pretty little white flower in the spring, and then the leaves persist throughout the summer and fall, and they're really beautiful. But yeah, so we have a lot of invasive species here. This is not a pristine habitat. Right. It's all been clear-cut or pastured or farmed in some way, but that not for a while. Like we've managed to protect it, and so we do fight a lot of invasives, but that's part of that research and part of that education. So students here that are interested in doing restoration ecology, that are interested in learning land management, and interested in invasive species removal, they get to see, you know, here is where we have removed some bush honeysuckle, which is an invasive species that really hits Indiana hard. And over here, we haven't removed it, and so they can see the difference, right? They can learn how to identify the different invasive species because we have a lot, and they can also learn eradication methods. So there are lots of different ways that you can remove them. It all depends on the species, the season, and what kind of help you have and what kind of money you have, all of those things. So they can learn about those things. So we might not ever eradicate all of them, but it is a great learning experience for our undergraduate students, but as well as our K-12 programs. We have our field trips out, and they are pulling garlic mustard, so we're getting ready to have garlic mustard season, so they are great at pulling garlic mustard.
I was just about to say, you know, sometimes with especially young children, we're always very quick to say, you know, don't pull the flowers up or something, but this might be a really fun way to get young kids involved. Like, any of those blue flowers, pull them up as many as you want.
They love it, and that's the thing too. Once you give them the ability to do it, they go with it. They really do. And so, but at the same time, you know, we learn, okay, you pull this, but you don't pull this, and they learn what an invasive species is. They learn what they're doing, the importance of it. And I've had parents send me pictures of their kids that came here and like, oh, they went to Grandpa's house and said, Grandpa, you have lots of garlic mustard. You have got to pull it. So they send me pictures like of their kids, our students, holding big handfuls of garlic mustard. And so that's why we do what we do, because not only are they holding big handfuls of garlic mustard, they've got a big smile on their face, and they know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's important to create these conservation-minded citizens.
Absolutely, and it's creating that connection between them and nature, but also letting them know what our role as human beings is in taking care of our environment. So I think one of the last things that we want to talk about today is more and more young people are really stepping up when it comes to climate change and the environment and what we need to do to protect the earth that we're living on. I've seen lately on social media, the viral thing has been when teens get bored, they go out, pick up trash, and they're posting pictures of all the garbage bags. It's like a competition. So get on it, Indianapolis. Where's our, how many garbage bags can we fill? But what other ways can young people, whether they're teenagers or even younger, and families get involved with the environmental justice movement, with taking care of the environment, and with advocating for the environment?
Yeah, so, well, for example, this weekend, which I guess is tomorrow, we have, Marion here has nights called Serve. So Marion is very service-oriented, and so a lot of the student groups are either required or do community service in some way, or maybe their courses require it. And so this is a perfect space for them because it's on campus, so they can come help out, and they can see the difference too because it's right here. It's something that they care about. They can kind of take ownership of, and so become part of a group. If you're already part of a group, see if you can kind of have that group maybe do something like this instead, right? So community, you can do a million things in your community to volunteer, and maybe one of those things is pulling garlic mustard in the spring. You could also, there's so many ways that you can get involved with the community with groups, but citizen science is also a great way to do it. So there are so many citizen science projects out there, whether it would be I don't know, sending in soil samples to a university that wants to look at the bacteria that you have, that everybody has in their soil in different areas, to helping NASA look at craters on the moon, to mapping invasive species in your area. So there are lots of different ways that you can do that. And there are a lot of citizen science projects that are for, young to old, to any age. So really it doesn't matter. So there are a ton of them there. Other ways, honestly, is keep yourself in check and look at your family and how much you use, right? What are you buying and what are you throwing away? And pay attention to your trash versus your recycling. If you're not recycling, then recycle. But even better, don't use. So if you're buying lots of bottled water, but I'm recycling all those bottles. How about you don't buy individual bottles of water and maybe buy a bigger one, or maybe use a filtration system or things like that. And I realize that kids might not have a say in what filtration system that they use, but they do have a say with their parents. And I know, like, when we have student groups out here, I hope that some of the things that they learn, they then take home to their parents and say, hey, guess what I learned? Is there some way that we can, lower our footprint, whether that's our carbon footprint, whether we're driving places less, or having a car that is more efficient, or just simply not throwing as much away. So those are important things too. So there are so many different things that you can do.
Yeah. So I think something that we want to challenge anyone who's watching this video is just to think, what can you do? What can your family do? How can you support young people in protecting the environment and advocating for the environment? They're the ones who are going to be living here after us older folks. Neither of us are really that old, but this is their planet too, and they'll be here long after we leave. So,
and it can be fun too. So it doesn't have to be work, right? So even as simply as if your family gets a pass to the state parks. So go buy a state park pass and then go and have fun in your parks.
Yeah.
So there are ways that you can do conserve without doing it yourself, you can also support organizations that conserve and protect natural areas as well.
Absolutely, like this one. So we hope that you've enjoyed learning more about the Ecolab. I have. Stephanie, this has been awesome, and we hope that you can comment, share, like, but more importantly, just come visit here. It's awesome. This has been the highlight of my week. And for next month on May 3rd, join us again on the first Friday of the month. We're going to be talking about summer meal programs. So something that hopefully will help a lot of families out during the summer. But thanks for joining us today.